Hello friends, looking at current affairs for 29th June. The news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 14. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, government to shed stake in loss-making Air India. So regarding Air India, we have been discussing for the last few days. It has been in news and it will continue to be in news as I have said earlier. So presently the news is regarding the strategic sale proposals which we discussed last. DIPAM, if you recollect, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, which is a department under Ministry of Finance. DIPAM had put forth before the Union Cabinet 3 proposals for strategic sale of Air India. How much percentage of sale should be done? So that's what we had discussed, whether it should be 100%, 74% or 51% sale. So here presently now what is the news is that the Union Cabinet has given in principle approval for strategic sale. So that has been mentioned here, that in principle approval has been given. So now what would be done is that a ministerial group would be formed under the chairmanship of Finance Minister Mr. Arun Jaitley. The other members will be decided soon. You can see they will be decided. So this ministerial group will prepare the further fine details about strategic sale of Air India. So this is the present news now. So it says 64 years after the airline was nationalized. So it was an airline under Tata's. It was nationalized as such and now it is going ahead for disinvestment. So this is the details given here, you can see. So this ministerial group which would be formed would decide on further details. Specifically, you can see the 5 points mentioned here. Treatment of unsustainable debt. So what is the unsustainable debt? What should be done with that? Hiving of certain assets to a shell company. That certain assets can be given to a shell company and can be worked on. Third is demerger and strategic disinvestment of 3 profit-making subsidiaries. So profit-making subsidiaries can be demerged as such so that they can function independently and remain profitable. Then quantum of disinvestment, just now as we discussed that the 3 options are there as such which have been put up by DIPAM, 100%, 74% or 51% disinvestment. And finally, universe of bidders would also be decided by this ministerial group. So this universe of bidders basically means who would be allowed to bid in this strategic sale. Whether it should be only Indian entities or foreigners would be allowed or not, like that. Then the next news item is PLA constructing road in disputed territory at Tri Junction, says Bhutan. So this we had discussed in news earlier and now this is an issue which is escalating. So Indian and Chinese armed forces are facing a standoff here. This is a region of Tri Junction where the 3 regions meet. That is, all 3 share boundary, India, China and Bhutan. So India, it is the Sikkim state which lies here. China, it is the Tibet region, and Bhutan, the state here, the country here. So now we can see the reason given here of this escalation of tensions is because it's a disputed territory between Bhutan and China. India is not involved here. India does not dispute this territory. This territory is known as Donglang in Chinese, and it is known as Dolam Plateau or Doklam Plateau as such. So this is the region where the dispute lies. So Bhutan also claims it, while China says this is not a disputed territory. This has been historically with us and belongs to us only. So they are constructing a road here, and when Indian armed forces also objected against this, China has responded saying that there should not be a third-party intervention because even if it's a dispute between China and Bhutan. So Bhutan does not have diplomatic ties with China. So India is speaking on behalf of Bhutan. So the Chinese representative here, Foreign Ministry spokesperson, is saying that this is encroaching on the sovereignty of an independent nation, Bhutan. Why is India interfering? So these are the statements also coming forth here. But India says this is a strategically important region because this is also very close to Chicken's Neck or Siliguri corridor as it is called. So this is the narrow region through which mainland India is connected with the northeast. So this region, Dolam, is very close to this Chicken's Neck, Siliguri corridor too. So that is also there. That's why we have a strategic importance in this region as well. So we have had border skirmishes earlier too. Here you can see the history of these border skirmishes which have happened between the Indian Armed Forces and the People's Liberation Army, PLA, the armed force of China. So since the 1962 India-China war, which China won assertively, we have seen these border skirmishes in Nathula Pass. Here you can see in 1967 in the same region. So in 1986, 2008, again this Tri Junction, Dokola as it is called, was again a region of region of dispute, where again the same thing, Chinese troops had destroyed the makeshift Indian army bunkers, which has happened presently to 2 Indian army bunkers were destroyed by Chinese troops presently in 2017 too. So we are seeing a repetition of this November 2008 incident now. Then in 2013 also again in Ladakh region, eastern Ladakh region, in Jammu and Kashmir, here too we have India-China border where we have seen disputes and standoffs. So now presently it is the 2017 incident which is presently seen to be escalating. Then the next news item is shed hate, not blood, say protesters. So this was a people's gathering in Jantar Mantar in New Delhi where they held placards reading "Break the Silence, no place for Islamophobia" and "Shed hate, not blood." So this was in context of the mob lynching incidents in the country which are escalating. So this have come prominently in news. The latest incident was of Junaid Khan, a resident of UP who was killed on a train, allegedly for being a Muslim and a beef eater. So he was wearing the skull cap, which represents the Muslims. The Muslims wear these skull caps, and that is why he was specifically targeted by a Hindu, allegedly cow vigilant group, and lynched to death. So this was an incident which took place in front of his brother as such, and others, they were taking videos rather than helping out the person as such who is being attacked. So this is the status of mob lynching presently which we are seeing in the country. So this, in the name of protecting the cow and the nation, people are taking up violence, and this has been spoken up against by the Prime Minister earlier too, and such incidents are on the rise presently, and this is a huge matter of concern here. Then the next news item is Bondla Zoo's lone tigress dies. So again, this news has been picked up because you should know about various zoos. This is actually Bondla Wildlife Sanctuary in Goa. So where is it located? Such questions are asked in UPSC prelims. So there are huge number of wildlife sanctuaries in number of states, and if you sit at one point of time and try remembering which is wildlife sanctuary national park in which state, it will be very difficult. So as and when they come up in news, you pick up the names and you keep going through them. That will be easy. It will take 2 minutes whenever they are in news, but they will help in long term retention of this information. So this is Bondla Zoo in Goa, and this had a single tigress which had actually been taken from Indira Gandhi Zoological Park in Visakhapatnam. So in 2009 through a friendly exchange for a bison. So bison, which is also called Indian gaur, you should again know a fact here that bison is the state animal of Goa. So in 2009 this friendly exchange took place and tigress was brought in this Bondla Zoo, but now it has died. So she has died is the present news coming forth. Then next is Congress wants resolution on journalists withdrawn. So this is regarding the Karnataka Legislative Assembly. It had passed a resolution on imprisonment of editors of 2 Kannada tabloids. Karnataka is actually governed by Congress, and Congress, the political party as such, has distanced itself from this Legislative Assembly's resolution. So it has created a huge controversy because the statements which they made, these are 2 editors. So these are editors of 2 Kannada tabloids as such. So these editors have been sentenced as such to imprisonment as to. So such action, can it be taken by a legislative assembly on charges of defamation? So this is a question which is being debated now. So there are parliamentary privileges. So you can see privilege motion in Indian Parliament can be initiated. So this privilege motion is a notice by any member of either house of state legislature or central parliament against anyone who is accused of breach of privilege. Now what is this breach of privilege? There are some parliamentary privileges which the MPs and MLAs and MLCs enjoy. So these are individual privileges too and collective privileges too. So some of these privileges you can see are that they cannot be arrested while the session is going on. So every individual MP, MLA, MLC, they have this right that while the parliament session is going on, in civil cases only, not in criminal cases. In civil cases, they cannot be arrested while the session is going on and even 40 days before and 40 days after the session. So this privilege is given. Then another privilege is they have freedom of speech in the legislature. They cannot be prosecuted for it. Then third is also they have the freedom. They cannot be asked to attend jury service. They cannot be called in the courts of law while the parliamentary session is going on. So such are the privileges given to each MP, MLA, MLC individually, and also the legislative body as a whole has collective privileges. Like they can decide what reports they want to publish, they can have secret meetings, they can punish members of the house too, and even outsiders for their contempt or the contempt of the house. So this is a provision which has presently been used to. So this was on the basis of a report which had come in this Kannada tabloids, which they called defamatory and false, which was against 3 MLAs here. So they are calling it defamatory and false and are punishing these 2 Kannada tabloid editors for contempt. So this is another issue which has created furor. Then next is new satellite GSAT-17 to boost ISRO capacity. So the last satellite which we had actually discussed was GSAT-19. GSAT-19 was also a communication satellite. So all these GSAT series satellites are communication satellites. There are now, after GSAT-17, it will become 17 Indian communication satellites which will be there in space, providing us communication services. So GSAT-19 was launched by India from Indian soil as such by GSLV Mk3, GSLV Mark III rocket, which was indigenously built with cryogenic technology, so that we can have heavier satellites. If you can recollect, 5,000 kg plus satellites, also up to 5,000 kg, those satellites can be launched by India. So that was the purpose with which we have developed this cryogenic technology and have tested it and have been successful with a launch too. But then it was then stated that it will be possible to have 2 launches in a year. But we want many more satellites to be launched. So we are still using outside services. We are using foreign services. This is European Space Agency's Ariane 5 rocket, which is being used for launching our satellite. So presently the satellite which is being launched, the GSAT-19 was launched by GSLV Mk3 from India. GSAT-17, so the series is before, the number is before, but then this is the satellite which has been launched presently. GSAT-18, we should know, has already been launched in October 2016 from same Ariane space rocket. And where is this Ariane space rocket launched from? This is in South America. This is the Kourou region here in French Guiana. So French Guiana region, if you look in the map of South America, it's not a separate country, but it is an independent territory administered by France. So it's still a territory under French control. So this Kourou, French Guiana, is the place from where European Space Agency launches its satellites, because it has to launch it in this direction, the direction in which the Earth rotates to. So it uses this direction, and plus there should be open water body. So these are the reasons why this place is specifically chosen for the purpose too. Also it is close to the equator. So this is the region used, because in Europe you have land as such across. So if God forbid, if there is an accident, then you need to have, even India launches it from the coast. The next to it is the Bay of Bengal. So that is the reason why these such regions are chosen for satellite launches. So this is where European Space Agency launches its satellites from, and this is the latest satellite which will be launched. After this, the next which will be launched will be GSAT-11. So again, don't be confused. GSAT-11 is going to be launched later now. 18 already launched, 17 will be launched, 11 will be launched later. So we have satellites which live up to their life and then they retire too. So there are new satellites which replace them. So you don't need to confuse with the numbers, and you don't even need to remember which was GSAT-17, 18, 19 and 11. It's okay. At least you should know some satellites have been launched from Ariane, on the Ariane rocket of European Space Agency. And we are expecting that GSAT-11 would be the last satellite launched from using foreign services. After that, we'll have our own capabilities in place. Right? So this is the 5,000 kg plus satellite here. The GSAT-17 is 3,477 kg. GSAT-11 will be 5,000 kg plus as such, which will be launched. So these communication satellites have transponders. So even GSAT-17 will have these transponders. GSAT-18 also had these 48 transponders, transmitters and responders. So for communication satellites, this is what you need. So these will be there on this satellite too. This you can see is the Ariane 5 rocket on which it would be launched. So it will provide services, continuity of services of operational satellites in these bands, C, extended C and S bands. So these are the bands of communication, the frequency bands as such, in which services are provided. So that's mentioned. So it will be used for broadcasting and telephone services as such. So this is the 21st Indian launch by Ariane Space. So we have been using its services for long. Since the experimental satellite Apple was launched in 1981, we have been using Ariane Space's services, and now we are expecting that we would have our own indigenous technology in place and will not require foreign services. Then next is not much impact of ransomware attack on India, says government. So this is regarding Petya or not Petya, a ransomware which has attacked various countries here, and even India seems to be affected now. So this Petya ransomware, you can see this is the message which comes forth. Earlier before this, the ransomware which we had discussed was WannaCry. Now this is Petya, and this is said to be much more advanced. It's a much more professional attempt. WannaCry, you can see, was the damage was minimized because its coding was sloppy. It was not up to the mark, but now this is professional coding, and it seems to employ the similar methods of WannaCry but much more professional. So this is going to have further ramifications. So here you can see this is what comes up on your screen when you are attacked by this Petya or not Petya ransomware. So they say your important files are encrypted, and to free them, you have to follow these instructions. Send $300 worth of bitcoins to the following address. They ask ransom in bitcoins, which cannot be tracked. So once you are done, you have to enter the key, and then your files are freed. So this Petya, it is called Petya because Petya is a ransomware which had made an attack earlier. So in October 2016, around 2016, and now this attack is also said to be by Petya, but some claim that no, this is not Petya. So that's why the ransomware has been called Petya, not Petya. So Petrowrap, which we did before this, the previous day, is also the same. So there are names are not clear yet, but these are the names coming forth for it. The second major global ransomware since WannaCry of May 2017, and they're using the same. So using the same technology and the same technique. This was Eternal Blue, the exploit which has been used by them to propagate themselves. So this is the entire scenario here. India has been affected. The country's largest container port, JNPT. It is operated by this Danish business conglomerate, AP Moller Maersk, and this is the organization which has been majorly affected in Europe also. So we are seeing its consequences in India as well, and steps are being taken to minimize these damages. So these are some of the preventive measures also which India has put forth, which have to be taken. So here you can see these are mentioned here, that you have to make sure that Microsoft Windows and all third-party softwares are updated, because it is using a breach, using a defect in the code of Microsoft Windows earlier version. This attack is possible. So if you have updated your softwares, then you will not have the trouble. It's crucial to apply MS 17010 bulletin immediately. So this is Microsoft 17010 bulletin. Then don't open attachments in unsolicited emails. Never click on a URL contained in an unsolicited email, even if it seems to be benign, that it's not harmful. Ensure that web browsers are secured enough with appropriate content controls. Even individuals and organizations should not pay ransom, is what even CERT, in the Indian Law Enforcement Agency for Cyber Attacks, is saying, that they should make sure that this ransom payment will not ensure that your files would be released. Such instances have to be brought to the notice of law enforcement agencies. So this is also emphasized on. Okay. Then the next news item is NATO says non-US 2017 defense spending to rise 4.3%. So this is now again a response to what US President Donald Trump had emphasized on. So at the NATO summit presently in Brussels in May 2017, he clearly stated that the European counterparts have to increase their defense spending. Otherwise, they should not expect that Washington or USA would come to their defense. So NATO actually is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So this is a treaty organization, mutual defense organization. Means if any one country, it's a 28 member grouping, you can see here the members are shown. So if any one country is attacked, then all countries would come to their rescue, to that country's rescue. So these are the 28 members. So it's NATO, North Atlantic, so across the Atlantic Ocean. So here you can see this Canada, USA and these European nations are members of this NATO, which was formed in 1949 during the Cold War era. And this organization still continues. So here, this treaty organization, they have a defense spending requirement. So each one has to contribute to defense spending, but then the major contribution comes from United States. So you can see. So this is the US contribution, and the other countries here, what NATO target is that at least each country should have 2% of their GDP spent on defense. 2% of their own GDP. So a smaller nation will have smaller requirement. So this has not been fulfilled by all nations. You can see only 5 nations, 4 excluding USA, have confirmed to this. These are Greece, Poland, UK and Estonia, and others have not. And this is what US President Donald Trump, and before him even Barack Obama and USA, has been repeatedly emphasizing on, but presently it's more direct and more crude. It has been stated that these countries have to increase their defense spending. So the news, that's what comes, that non-US 2017 defense spending will be increased. So they will increase by 4.3%, and gradually they will try to come to 2% of GDP mark. So this is being stated here. You can see US accounts for 70% of combined NATO defense spending, because US GDP is also high, so its contribution is also more, and it's not bringing in 2% but 3.4%, as you are seeing, 3.6%. So it's a huge amount of money coming in from USA. That's why its contribution is 70% of the combined NATO defense spending. So it's asking for its allies to ease the burden for it. Then the next news item is government unveils new hydrocarbon policy. So this is regarding a new hydrocarbon policy now. So this new hydrocarbon policy is not going to replace the HELP. You should know about HELP, Hydrocarbon Exploration and Licensing Policy. This was the policy announced by the present government, replacing NELP, New Exploration Licensing Policy, which was there in place earlier. So HELP is in place, but this is a new policy which will be part of this. So this is OALP, Open Acreage Licensing Policy. So this Open Acreage Licensing Policy has been announced. What is this policy specifically for? This is for oil and gas exploration. But then we see that this is hampered presently because we do not have correct data about seismic sedimentary basin. So the sedimentary, because these, you should know that hydrocarbons, oil and gas, are found in below the sedimentary rocks. So the seismic sedimentary basin data, since it is not available, we do not know where is this oil and gas located. So that is why open acreage licensing policy means everybody is free to explore. So exploration can be done for hydrocarbons as such. Then after that, once you have found hydrocarbon, you can apply for the license. So that is what this is meant to provide for. So you can see that what has become a block in further development of hydrocarbons is that the bidders have to wait for a formal bid round from the government. So now they can select exploration blocks on their own without having to wait for the formal bid round from the government. So this is the new policy. So after the company explores, then it can submit an application to the government that it wants, then that block would be put up for bid. So presently bidding is held twice a year. You can see in January and July. But then the government is saying that once this picks up, the OALP picks up, Open Acreage Licensing Policy, we get more response from this, then we can have more biddings as such taking place in a year. So this is there. Also another round of bidding which recently got concluded was discovered small fields bid. So these were discovered small fields, means these were small fields of hydrocarbons which had been discovered but were not considered to be viable then. So they had not been developed. The procurement as such had not taken place, and now the production as such had not taken place. So now these discovered small fields had been put for bidding. So presently we saw the bid as such was small, but then the government is sure that this would bring in more insight about how investment can be brought in this sector. Then another point which the Petroleum Minister has been putting on quite often is that we need to develop a Southeast Asian natural gas hub in India. So this should be the hub from where natural gas, can be provided at a fair price, because what we see presently is that natural gas prices are indexed to oil prices. So oil index nature of LNG import contracts is actually making them costly. So this price vulnerability has to be eliminated, and there should be gas on gas competition, for which we need to have a natural gas hub. And we need to develop such a hub in India as been proposed by the Petroleum Minister, Mr. Vardhan Pradhan. So this is also mentioned here. Also, lastly, he says that about 52% of Indian sedimentary basins are unappraised. We are not having appraisal about them, that how much of oil or gas is present in them. So last appraisal, he says, took place 25 years ago. So lack of sedimentary seismic basin data is hampering exploration and production of oil and gas industry. That is why this new policy OALP has been launched. And this is regarding HELP and NELP, the two policies which you should know the difference between the two, and the details of the discovered small fields bid is mentioned here and the response which it got. So this is HELP and NELP. So based on various parameters, they are being looked into, but the most important difference between the two hydrocarbon exploration policies are that this licensing policy is revenue sharing basis, the present one, and the earlier one was profit sharing basis. So in NELP, you were allowed to have production, and the company which has won the bid, it will be producing till it earns profits. So when profits come, then the profit is shared with the government. And HELP is revenue sharing basis. So whatever is the revenue, that revenue has to be shared on a continual basis. So revenue sharing basically means that you're not going to just share the profit, but whatever be the revenues, if there are losses, profit, whatever it may be, both would be shared with the government. So the company, the bidder, private sector would share this with the government. So that is a revenue sharing model, and what NELP was a profit sharing model. So in that, time was given for cost recovery, that you were given time for cost recovery. Here there is no question of that, because whatever be the profits loss, they are shared. So this is there. So here cost efficiency is encouraged, it is stated. Royalty rates are also different. It is low for offshore fields here in HELP, and also revenue to government starts from the time of production. So on production, revenue to government starts, and here revenue to government came after cost recovery, that is from the profit as such which is made. So these are the specific differences, and also other two aspects are that in HELP, exploration in mining lease areas are also allowed, and exploration and production activity for all hydrocarbons are allowed, which was not the case with NELP. Then the next news item is Niti Aayog moots new regulator for coal gas. So Niti Aayog has now put forth a suggestion that there should be separate regulators for various sectors. So for upstream petroleum sectors, coal, oil and gas, there should be separate independent statutory regulators. It states that ideally it should be the case that there should be a single regulator, the way it is there for electricity. So there all source of hydrocarbons merge finally for electricity. So that is rightly governed by a single regulator. But since in India we don't have a regulator, we don't have a regulator in coal, we don't have a regulator in petroleum sector, because in India this was dominated by PSU so far. So now, since we are seeing that private sector is also entering into this field, the need for a regulator is required. So initially there should be independent statutory regulators, and after that later we can have a super regulator. So this is the suggestion from Niti Aayog. So this is all part of the draft national energy policy which Niti Aayog has come forth with. Then the next news item is Westinghouse's $20 billion nuclear deal needs a reboot. So this is again in news in context of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to USA. So Westinghouse is a nuclear power company from USA, but it has been acquired by Toshiba. It has become its parent company. Toshiba is a Japanese company, and Westinghouse has recently filed for bankruptcy. And Westinghouse has already been negotiating a deal with India, specifically with NPCIL, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. So this deal now needs to be renegotiated is the point put forth. So 6 nuclear reactors were proposed to be built by Westinghouse in India. There were troubles in this too. There were protests because after the Japanese Fukushima nuclear disaster, there were demands for more safety measures to be brought in. Even India had its Nuclear Liability Act in place. So that the liability provisions, nuclear liability provisions, were also disputed by these foreign companies. So then afterwards, finally, when the deal saw the light of the day, it had also to be shifted. Earlier it was in Gujarat, then it was shifted to Andhra Pradesh. So this deal finally seeing the light of the day seems again a problem, because now Westinghouse has filed for bankruptcy. So now what is being proposed is that the entire renegotiation of this deal would take place with Westinghouse looking into the design. The consultation and design of the reactors will be provided by it, and the development, the actual construction of the plant can be taken care of by the Indian entity. Indian companies can be entrusted with this. So a new model may be taken care of. This is being proposed now. And US Exim Bank, which was the bank which was going to finance these 6 nuclear reactors, it is said it will still play a role in a new arrangement too. So this is the latest development here. So you can see Westinghouse, it was initially allotted a site in Gujarat, then it went to Andhra Pradesh as such. India's Liability Act also delayed this nuclear project as such. So after India-US nuclear deal, this was the first deal as such which was proposed to be actually bringing into implementation and setting up nuclear reactors in India. But this has also been delayed now, we see that. Then this is regarding Westinghouse, the net worth which has gone down. So Toshiba's net worth and Westinghouse loan guarantees details are shown here. Then the next news item is Sri Lanka, India to set up solar units soon. So this is actually an old news. We have already discussed this quite often in 2016 also. So this is regarding Trincomalee here. So Trincomalee is an important port in Sri Lanka, a strategic location. And here in Trincomalee, a project for developing a coal plant was awarded to NTPC, an Indian PSU, by the Sri Lankan government. But later Sri Lankan government said, no, we don't want a coal plant. We want to go ahead with clean technologies. So this will result in carbon emissions. So we don't want to establish a coal plant. So then the proposal was given that alternative proposals, alternative technologies can be, alternative sources of energy can also be explored here. And finally, it was decided that a solar power plant would be established. So this is what is going to kickstart now, that a solar power plant would be established in this port town of Trincomalee by NTPC only. So this is the news here. And also an MOU for setting up a LNG plant has been decided in Colombo. So here Colombo is the port on the other coast here. So this Trincomalee is on the western coast and Colombo is here on the eastern coast. So this is there. Also, you should know about another prominent port which is generally in use, Hambantota port, with respect to China. So even in Colombo and Hambantota, Chinese projects are there in place. Huge investment has been brought in by China, establishing a port and even SEZ as such for specifically for China. These are being proposed in these regions here. Then so this is there. So you can see this is September 2016 news that this project was scrapped by the Sri Lankan government citing environment concerns. So now an LNG and a solar power plant project can be a good initiative. Also in Trincomalee, another project in which we are jointly cooperating is on developing or operating the World War era oil storage facilities. So there are these oil storage facilities in Trincomalee. So oil storage, underground oil storage as such. So these will also be jointly operated by India and Sri Lanka. So this is also to make this region as a petroleum hub, a regional petroleum hub here. So this is there. So India-Sri Lanka cooperation is also important, especially in context of China and how do we compete with China in this region. The next is air pollutants on solar panels reduce power generation by 17%. So this is actually a study coming forth from IIT Gandhinagar students. So they have seen that these solar panels which are being placed on the rooftops, they have this black carbon, dust, organic carbon from biomass burning and fossil fuels all accumulating on it. So these are all particulate matter. So this particulate matter deposited on solar panels result in reduction in solar power generation capacity. So they are claiming that it is 17% reduction which is being seen because of this particulate matter. So that is why now it is a huge loss actually, because out of 12 gigawatts installed solar power plant capacity in the country, 2 gigawatts is lost. So we have a target, solar mission which we have, the target is that renewable energy target is 175 gigawatts by 2022. We have already discussed this in detail. So we have this ambitious target in which solar energy has a major role to play, even with rooftop solar panels have a significant part in it. So now this is a study which is coming forth. So also, you should know that this is because of particulate matter only. Actually, the accumulation which is seen on solar panels is dust. So dust accounts for 92% of this, samples which are collected. But then they do not affect because dust particles are big enough. So they are not resulting in loss of, efficiency of these solar panels. But then it is the particulate matter specifically which cause this reduction. So this is the news as such. And this also cleaning does not help. Because cleaning as such, these particulate matter, they are very sticky too, so they do not come out easily too, and they can damage as such too. So there is a risk of damaging the solar panels in cleaning also. So this is there. So only option which has been stated in the study is that reduction in carbon emissions is important. Then next is DNA study solves Darwinian puzzle. So this is regarding Charles Darwin, his puzzle which is there about a particular fossil which he found, and he was not able to place it in the evolution tree. Where does it lie in the evolution tree? So this bones which he had collected, he had sent to his friend, the renowned paleontologist Richard Owen, too, but he could not decide as well. It is called to be the strangest animal ever discovered. It has been named as Macrocania patagonica. So this animal, you can see it is having, it's said, imagine that it is a camel without a hump. Its feet are slender like a rhino. Its head is shaped like a saiga antelope. So here the artist's image of this animal is also shown. So we'll read it together. Here you can see. So this feet like a slender rhino, camel without a hump. Then they say it is head shaped like an antelope. Then they say long, it's literally a long necked llama. It has a long rubbery snout. So it's having a snout. Its nose is here. So it's a long rubbery snout which it has. And finally, they say that its nostrils are high on the skull just above its eyes. So nostrils are above the eyes. So this is the animal whose fossils have been found. But now through a DNA study, the scientists have been able to put it in the right place. It is not associated with llama. Its ancient placental order is that which includes the horses, rhinos and tapirs. So it's associated with these animals. So actually the scientists use the mitochondrial DNA. So this mitochondrial DNA extracted from the fossil was possible to help in the exact identity of this animal and its genesis. So this mitochondrial DNA, what is it and what is its significance, you should know. So this mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother in all mammals, even in humans. So this we have discussed in humans cases also, when we see genetic manipulation also, which is generally done for some mitochondrial related diseases also. 3-parent baby specifically, if you recollect, is in which we discussed mitochondrial DNA. So this is you should at least know that this is inherited only from the mother. So what is mitochondria too? We'll see all that in detail too. So here it is shown. So this another point which is put forth is dinosaurs went extinct also. So it's mentioning that dinosaurs went extinct, non-avian dinosaurs, when a massive asteroid slammed into the earth around 66 million years ago. So this split as such took place then is what is concluded here. So you should know about this also. An asteroid that was just like a dust particle striking a ball, but its impact was so significant. It was in this region, you can see. It's in Central America here, where this asteroid struck, because of which dinosaurs are said to have gone extinct. At least the non-avian dinosaurs who could not fly. And this is important, specifically more so for us, the mitochondrial DNA. So in the nucleus, you have the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So in the nucleus, DNA comes from both the parents. But the mitochondria, actually, DNA comes only from the mother. So the sperm and the egg, when they come together, the sperm's mitochondria is actually lost. So it's only the mother's mitochondria, which DNA information, which is taken in. So this helps in better genetic analysis to understanding the lineage as such. So you understand clearly because it's only from one source. It's not mixed. So that is why this is helpful in genetic studies also. So these are the news items. Thank you.